And thank you so much, really appreciate it. So just to get me started here, I just want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to Hector, Alfredo, Anna, thank you to Education USA. I'm so excited. We've been working with Education USA for a long time. We love this organization and thank you for having us. And I'm really excited to talk to you today about testing from a university perspective. So if we can go on to the next slide here, please, Hector. So again, my name is Gordon Berridge. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Bentley University's McCallum Graduate School of Business. I've been with Bentley University now for going on 8 years. However, I've been working in higher education for close to 20 years. So I'm pretty well versed in a lot of these areas. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. We are going to be doing a question and answer section at the end. So you can go ahead and either put it there in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get to those right at the end as we go through today's session. So we're on to the next slide, please. So really my goal here today is to give you kind of an insider's look on how an admissions department or an admissions committee looks at the testing. Now, this is particularly from the graduate school perspective. The Gmat and GRE are pretty much solely for graduate school programs. But I know that Hector went over this a little bit earlier, but this is a pretty typical application process. This one here pretty much mirrors the application process for us here at Bentley University. So it's just part of it, but you will see that part of that is the Gmat or GRE, as well as the official English proficiency tests as well. But also you have interviews, letters of recommendation, transcripts, resume, essays, and your application fee. If you're unsure, I know we are going to focus on the Gmat and GRE and the English assessments, but if there are any other parts of these sections here as far as the application goes that you're unfamiliar with, I really encourage you to reach out to your Education USA local center. They're just a wealth of knowledge and information that they can help you out with this. Or two, you can also reach out to your admissions office for the university that you're interested in. They are also a great source of information that would be specifically for their institution, but they can help out as well. So next slide, please. So a couple of things I want you to understand, and that's kind of the know before you go. So know before you go to take this assessment. And so during that research phase that Hector so eloquently discussed earlier in the presentation, you need to find out which tests the universities you're applying to accept. Now, ideally, you really want to take the assessments that are going to be appropriate for the most schools that you're going to apply for. And so as you're doing your research, you want to make sure you know which of these tests they take. Do they take the Gmat? Do they take the GRE? Are there other tests that they want you to take? When it comes to the English proficiency test, do they take the Toefl, the IELTS? Which do they prefer? Because there are some institutions which will take more than one, but when you're talking to them, you can ask, well, which do you prefer? Do you prefer the Gmat? Do you prefer the GRE? Also, you do need to find out the minimums. Some universities will have a minimum cutoff. And if you do not meet that minimum cutoff, that can be an automatic rejection. And so you do not want to go through all of the hard work of applying to a graduate level program and then get automatically rejected because of your test scores. So before you start getting into and taking all those tests, find out what those minimum scores are so you can make sure that you are above those minimums. Also, you want to find out what those preferred scores are as well. Because a lot of universities do have a preferred score. So for example, here at Bentley University, we do accept the Gmat, we accept the GRE as well. But if someone was going to take the Gmat score, I might say that our minimum is 500, but we prefer a 600 or better. And so that can be really important information. So not just what the minimums are, but which do they prefer? What's their average? That's another way to ask as well. Because again, what their average is, you want to make sure that you're at least at or above where their average GRE, Gmat scores are. I do know a lot of institutions and a lot of universities, they will post those on their website. But if they don't, again, reach out to that local graduate admissions office, attend an event like this, or one of their other events that it might be online, where you can ask those types of questions. The next thing you want to do is find out when those dates and tests are being offered. Again, Hector went over a really great calendar, a schedule of how to apply to a graduate school program. And you're going to want to know when those test scores are, especially if you need to take it multiple times. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on how to handle that piece of it. But knowing when those test dates are can be really beneficial in helping you plan out your schedule. But also you're going to want to know when the application due dates are, because you're going to need to want to take that test before you submit your application. Because some universities may accept your application prior to the testing, but a lot of them honestly will not. They're going to want to see that test score with your application. So understanding when those test dates are and when those applications are due can really help you better plan for when to apply for your graduate level program. And then also you're going to want to find out if those tests are being offered online. And I do know that Hector went over this a few minutes ago, but due to COVID, a lot of universities, or excuse me, a lot of those testing centers are available online, but there are still some that are not. And so when you're looking, make sure you find out, okay, are they still being offered online? Can I take them from home? Do I have to go into someplace? That can be a real challenge. So those are some of the things you want to know before you go ahead and start taking those tests and scheduling those appointments. So go on to the next slide, please. Okay, test preparation. I do know that Hector touched on this a little bit, but I do want to go into, some things that I think, some tips that can really help you in preparing for that test, because honestly, test anxiety, it's real. It's a real thing. Anxiety about going in and taking a test, especially a long 3 to 4 hour exam, can be really stressful. And just please note that that is okay. It's okay to be a little anxious. It's okay to be a little bit stressful, but there are things that you can do that can help minimize that stress, minimize that anxiety before going in and taking that test. And so again, use that online or in-person test preparation. Again, there are some great resources that you can utilize online that may be free. There are some fantastic ones that you would have to pay for as well. But utilize those test preparations as you're going through. Again, if you're not quite sure where to begin with those test preparations, reach out to your local Education USA advisor and they too can help you out. And here's the best part with these practice tests. Excuse me. You can take these practice tests as many times as you need to feel comfortable and confident. Make sure you go through, take them, feel comfortable, feel confident, look at those test scores. Are you about in that age or that range of where you want to be with those averages, above those minimums? Take it as many times as you need, because that's going to help you build your confidence and also a little bit of stamina as well. Again, we're talking about a 3 to 4 hour exam where you have to focus for those 3 to 4 hours, and taking those practice tests can build up that stamina as well. Now, if you have to take the test in person, plan on arriving early. Make a plan that you might hit traffic. I've spent some time. If you're in Mexico City, you know that there's a lot of traffic there and anything can happen. So you want to make sure that you plan on arriving early. Make sure that you give yourself that buffer time. If you're taking public transportation, same thing. Trains can be late, taxis can be late. Plan for the avoidable stuff and make sure you arrive early. So that you're not, again, stressed. So when you get there, you can settle in, make sure that you're nice and calm. And the other thing I will say too, and I didn't put it on here, is to make sure you get a great night's rest the night before. Eat a good breakfast, eat a good lunch, whenever that event is, to make sure that you are prepared to go in there and really, do the best you can with a good night's sleep, good food in your belly, ready to really hit that test hard. If your test is online, again, a lot of these are being offered online, make sure you're in a private space with no distractions. You're going to want to make sure, if you have roommates or family at home with you, if you live with other people, make sure you're in a space by yourself. You do not want to be distracted. Make sure, if you have pets or animals, try to keep them outside the room, or maybe have somebody else watch them for the day. Or if you need to, go over someone else's house where you have a really good internet connection, because that's going to be important as well. Because some of these online tests, there's going to be a video portion. So you're going to want to make sure that you have a good, strong internet connection where you're able to do that. And then the last piece of advice I'm going to give you as you go into that test, whether that's online or in person, is breathe. Make sure you breathe as you go through that. Make sure you're nice and calm. Make sure to, Find something that makes you calm as you go in, breathe as you're going through the exam. Make sure, use all that practice that you did, all of those things that you did preparing for that to go in and feel confident as you go through. So we'll go on to the next one. All right, so you've just completed the test. Now what? Here's what you need to figure out. Are my scores good enough? Did I take an exam? Did I take the exam? Did I score the score that I wanted? And then you need to ask yourself, okay, do I need to take it again? Do I feel like I can do better? And so if your scores are not good enough, you ask yourself, do you need to take that again? Did you do your best, or do you feel like now you can do better? And if you need to take it again, that's okay. Again, we understand. I've been doing this for a long time. I have a lot of colleagues that work at a lot of different universities. I can tell you upfront that most universities that I've dealt with and worked with, it's okay to receive more than one score from a student. It's just showing that they're improving themselves as they're going through. So if you need to take it again, that's okay. Again, it's not going to be a detriment to your application. So if you need to, that is okay. I'm giving you permission. And then the next thing is you want to find out the best way on submitting your scores. So if you know the institutions that you want to receive your test scores, they can give you their number. There's an identification number that a lot of universities use that for these tests that they can give you, that you can use, that will have the test score sent to them automatically. And that can be a little bit quicker. If not, you do want to make sure that you get printouts or get some way, where that's emailed to you, access to that, so you can submit those scores along with your application. And here's the other thing too. Here's another little insider's tip that I'll give you. Once you've taken the test, see if you can get an unofficial printout or unofficial scores. What that can do is there are some universities like myself, like my own university here, Bentley University, we will accept unofficial scores as part of your application. However, if you are accepted, we would need those official scores. But sometimes that is a great way to help you submit your application a little bit earlier, especially if you find yourself later in that process, farther down that calendar, again, that Hector showed you earlier. So find out the best way to submit the scores, talk to the institution, talk to the universities. Maybe they do only want official scores, and that can be really helpful, again, knowing ahead of time what you will need. So again, the unofficial versus official scores as we go through this process. So we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so now I want to give you a little bit more tips and advice, again, from an insider, as someone who's done this for a long time. Again, I really want you to do your research. This can be such an important piece. And I know that we've talked about it a couple of times already, but I really want to make sure we emphasize this, because that can really make the difference, especially going into, the other parts of the application, whether that's writing an essay, doing the interview, but doing your research can really help you prepare to submit the best possible application. And the next thing I want you to do is contact the universities that you're most interested in. Attend their events. See if you can schedule a consultation or an appointment with one of their directors, admissions directors, or ambassadors, or alumni, or current students to learn a little bit more about that particular institution. Ask about the testing scores. Find out about, okay, hey, how did you do on the admissions, entrance test? If you're talking to a particular student, did you do really well? What would you recommend? What do you think is the best score to get, when applying for a school? And when you talk to that graduate admissions office, it's going to be a really great opportunity for you to also find out and learn a little bit more about you from them. Learn a little bit more about them from you. And so it's a great opportunity to have that conversation when you're going through. And so this also gives you an opportunity to kind of interview them a little bit, find out about, some of the great things about their institution. What are you looking for? If there's particular things you want from that university, you can use this time to find out if they have the type of things that you're looking for as far as part of your program. You can also ask to speak with professors. The professors and alumni can be a great resource for help in trying to understand if this is going to be the right fit for you. Professors can talk about their their teaching styles. Professors can talk about, the type of subjects that they're going to cover, maybe what type of examples they use. Alumni can talk about how the education prepared them upon graduation to get that great career and job that they're looking for. And again, attend a lot of events in person or online, like this one here, or like other ones with the universities or institutions. That can be such a great resource for information. And here's another thing I want to tell you is when you are talking with the admissions officers, when you're talking with alumni, current students, professors, keep all emails and interactions with the school professional, almost as if all of these will be added to your application. And the reason that this is so incredibly important is that you never know. Maybe this professor, maybe this alumni could be part of the admissions committee. They could be reviewing your test scores. And especially if your test scores are a little bit lower, maybe that professional interaction with the university can help you bump yourself up and over somebody else who maybe does have a little bit better test scores than yourself. And it also allows them to get to know you a little bit more. So keep those emails professional, keep those interactions professional as well. Make sure you're reviewing your emails and stuff before you send them for proper spelling and grammar. Again, because you are representing yourself when you're talking to this institution. And these types of professional interactions can especially help you if you didn't do great on one of those exams, or it can even push you a little bit higher if you did really great on the exam as well. So keep these types of advice in mind when you're thinking about those types of tests as you're going through. We'll go on to the next slide, which I think is getting to our question slide here. So that's the advice now. So hopefully that's helpful. If you have questions, go ahead and ask them. We're happy to help out. But hopefully that's some advice that you can use to really make sure you're not only submitting your great application, but you're going to be well prepared to go ahead and take those great tests, either those English tests or those TOEFL exams. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alfredo. Can you help us out with the Q&A part, please?
Sure thing. Okay, we have a couple of questions here. The first one is, how would you say it affects taking the GRE or the TOEFL at home edition versus the testing center?
So that's a great question. And so I think it really depends on your situation. And so I do know that, like I've worked with some students in the past, and they actually prefer being at home because it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. They're in kind of in their own environment. There's, they can kind of set their environment up so they're more comfortable. But I've also had other students who have said, I need to go to a center and take this test. I need to go someplace else because maybe there are too many distractions at home, especially if you have a big family, or maybe you have pets or something like that. Or maybe, you're by a busy street or something along those lines. Make sure that, kind of what your situation is. The other thing I would recommend also is know your internet connection. Make sure you have a strong internet connection. For example, I'm coming to you today from my house, but I know if I was at some of my friends' houses in other towns, I might be a little bit more skeptical about taking something or doing a presentation like this because their internet connection isn't quite as stable as I have here at my house. So if you don't feel like you have that strong, stable internet connection, maybe going to an in-person thing may be a little bit better for you. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Thank you. Okay, I have another question. Do the GRE or the Gmat scores expire?
They do. There are some expiration dates. I think it's 2 years. And if anyone else knows, either Hector or Anna, if they can jump in, I think it's 2 years, but correct me if I'm wrong.
For the TOEFL, it is 2 years. For the GRE, it's 5 years.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I have another one. Do I have to take an exam for each program that I would like to apply?
So like, do you have to take multiple versions, like multiple GMAT, GRE tests?
Correct.
You should only have to take it once, and you can apply to multiple universities with that one score. So if you took it once and you got a 650, you can use that 650 to apply to multiple schools as you go forward. Or, if you took the TOEFL and you got a and you got a 100, you can submit that 100 TOEFL score to all of the universities that you are applying to, as long as those are the exams or tests that they accept. The only time you may have to take multiple tests is if you're applying to different schools that have different requirements. So if one school only takes the GMAT and another school that you want to go to only takes the GRE, that may be a time where you have to take both. So just again, make sure you're going and doing your research to find out which test scores that they take. But again, most universities will take one, usually take both, but again, you want to reach out and just find out. But as far as like taking the GMAT multiple times, nope, you only have to take it once if you score well. The only time you would take it multiple times is if you want to improve your score as we go through.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have one last question. Would you recommend a specific exam for English proficiency?
So for English proficiency, I mean, I would recommend either the TOEFL or the IELTS exam. I know they're a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones, but they are the most widely accepted. I know that a lot of people want to take the Duolingo because it's a little quicker and it's a little cheaper, and I totally understand that. However, you want to go for an English assessment test that's going to be more widely accepted, especially if you're going to be applying to multiple universities. I would recommend the TOEFL or the IELTS exam, as again, they're going to be more widely accepted, and probably the most widely accepted is the TOEFL as an English assessment goes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, those are all the questions that we have right now.
I do have a couple of questions here.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Anna.
So people are asking you specifically, Gordon, which exam would you recommend, GRE or GMAT?
So I think it really depends on what type of program you're applying to. So if you're going to apply to a business school, GMAT all the way. If you're applying to any type of business school, MBA program, finance, accountancy, something along those lines, it's going to be the GMAT for you. If you're applying for something, sociology, a master's in English, something along those lines outside of the business world, then that's where the GRE, I would recommend you taking that one. Because the GMAT is pretty specific to business schools. So, again, depending on which type of graduate degree you're looking for.
Okay. Do you have any good websites or online resources that you recommend for studying or preparing for the exam?
So yeah, there's a couple. I do know that for the GMAT exam, there's the company that does that is Gmat, GMAC. And they do offer some online, both at a cost and free assessments that you can do and things. I think if you're going to take the GMAT, that's the best one. And then also the company that does the GRE, they too offer some free ones. I think that's a great place to start because they're the ones that actually do the exams. And then there are obviously some local stuff. I know that there's some great ones there in some great locations there all around Mexico, but I would probably defer for the local stuff to you professionals there at Education USA to give them some advice on what may be local. But I would start with those two websites to really give you some assessments. There's another great one, Kaplan. They also do some test prep stuff as well, and I've heard some really great things about what they do as far as helping with test prep and getting you ready for those exams too. So that's Kaplan, Kaplan is another good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. And finally, if the university I'm applying to does not require an exam, would you still recommend taking the exam?
If they don't require it, no. If it's not part of the process, again, you may want to reach out to the university that you're interested in applying to. Do they recommend the test? They don't require it. I mean, the only way that I think I would take the test is if it wasn't required but recommended, would be if I didn't have a lot of experience. Like, let's say part of my application wasn't as strong as I would like it to be, whether that's lack of professional experience, or maybe it's been a couple of years since you've graduated from school and maybe you didn't do all that great in your bachelor's degree program. Maybe your grades weren't quite what you wanted them to be. Maybe in taking the GMAT or GRE and providing a good score can help offset those deficiencies in your application. That would be that. But again, you want to make sure that they are going to even review that. So maybe reach out to the institution that you're interested in. And I've actually had students do this, and that's the advice I've given them. I've had students who reached out to me who are interested in Bentley, and they'll say, listen, I'm really excited about applying for Bentley. I know that you guys offer some waivers. I qualify for the waiver, but here's the thing, I really didn't do great in my undergraduate program. Would you recommend me taking the Gmat? And after looking at their transcripts and their experience, for some people, I said, yeah, I would recommend it because it's going to make your application that much stronger when we sit down and look at your application as an admissions committee to really make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best light possible. So that's where I might take it if it's not required, if you have those deficiencies in your application. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you. And in your case, in Bentley's case, are you requiring the exam? Because of the COVID situation, there are some institutions that are not requiring the exam. So we want to know in case of Bentley.
Yeah, so we do offer waivers. So we offer waivers based on prior education. We offer waivers based on experience. We also, so for example, if you have, applying for one of our graduate programs and you already have 5 years of professional work experience after you've earned your degree, we will consider waiving you from the GRE or the Gmat. Or if you graduated from an accredited business school or school there in Mexico or anywhere else around the world, we'll also consider waiving you from the Gmat or GREs. So if you graduated within the past 5 years and you've received a GPA of 3.2 or better on a 4.0 scale, we will consider you as well. Or if you've earned a previous advanced degree, like another master's degree or PhD from another accredited institution, we'll also consider it as well. And then when it comes from the English assessment, if you graduated from an institution in an English-speaking country like the US, like if you graduated from a school here in the US or from Canada, or maybe England or Australia, somewhere like that, we will consider it. Or if your entire degree was completed in English, excuse me. So if you did a degree in Mexico where your entire bachelor's degree was conducted in English and you show us documentation of that, we'll also consider waiving you from the English exam as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
We just got 2 questions. Do we have time for those?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, good. Okay, the first one. Are there any kind of simulators or apps to practice for these exams?
There are some stuff out there. I don't know anything off the top of my head. Hector, Anna, Alfredo, I don't know if you guys know of anything. I know there are.
Magoosh. It's a app. They do an app. Also, it's for the GRE. There's an application that it's cards, GRE cards. You look for it on the Play Store, and then they give you like words that are on the GRE, and then you practice with those words in like a different setting. And those are free. The GRE cards are free.
Good. Thank you. And the last one. How much a good transcript or academic recommendation letter weighs if we do not get that good of a GRE score?
Mm-hmm. No, great question. And so again, I said it before, test anxiety is real. It's a real thing out there in the world, so I get it. And so, if you did really well in your undergraduate program and you got good grades, that can help offset a weak GRE score. So, and you can even write that in your essay for your application, or a really strong recommendation from a current professor or from a former professor that can speak in detail about your academic ability can also be really helpful in offsetting a poor GRE score. However, I will say just one quick note. It doesn't matter how good your undergraduate grades are or how strong that letter is. If you don't meet those minimums for that testing, nothing will save you. So really make sure you know what those minimum requirements are for the GRE or the Gmat. Because again, I know in our system, for example, if you get below a certain score within one of those tests, our system automatically rejects you. So it's important. And I know there's a lot of institutions that do that as well. So it's important to make sure that at least at a minimum, you're over there, you're over their minimum when submitting it. But again, if you're over their minimum, not quite at their average, that's where those really strong transcripts and a really good recommendation from a professor can help offset that weaker score.
Thank you. Okay, and on my end, those are all the questions.
Thank you, Alfredo. Thank you, Anna. And I want you to remember that we have an Education USA virtual fair. Gordon is going to be participating in that fair too. And we invite you, it's next week, August 25. And there's the registration. I want to put the link on the chat. I'm sorry. And there's our contact information if you want to look for it. And you were asking about resources for the GRE on the Toefl. In our website and the bit.ly USA MX, you find a lot of resources from Education USA to prepare for those exams. So thank you, Gordon, and see you the next time.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much. I put my email in the chat. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to help out. But thank you again for having us. Really, really appreciate it.